Hello everybody, my name is ashmichda, and if you're watching this video, that means that you are interested in speedrunning Deltarune. This guide will go over all of the basic things you need to start speedrunning, as well as any more advanced strats to help older runners improve. This guide was made assuming that you at least have some experience speedrunning in general, so it will not go over more general things like live split and game capturing. I put a timestamp to every section in the description of the video if you want to scroll to specific parts of the setup/run. If you need any more help after watching this video, or want to know something not explained in this video, you can join the Deltarune Speedrunning Community Discord server over at discord.gg/flb. The link will also be in the description of the video. If anything new is discovered, I will be sure to mention it in the description, and if I forget to include anything in the video, please let me know in the comments so I can make sure to include it in the description as well. I hope this video helps you, and I look forward to seeing your Deltarune speedrunning journey. Now before we get into speedrunning Deltarune, we actually have to obtain the correct version of Deltarune. You may think, oh, well I'll just go on Steam or itch.io and download the Deltarune Chapter 1+2 demo. However, this is not what you want to do, because the Chapter 1 in the demo is actually way different from the Chapter 1 that we do runs on. This is because of some weird thing that happened when transferring from game making softwares, but it's okay because we can still obtain the older version, which is called Survey Program. By doing this, if you go to the DeltaruneSpeedrun.com page, you can click on the Resources tab. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see that Toby Fox was nice enough to supply us with an English and Japanese version of Survey Program. Which one you get does not actually matter, as either way you will be able to switch from the English and Japanese versions within the game. Just download one of them, and it will automatically download onto your computer, the entire exe and everything. Once that downloads, you can go ahead and click to open it. And you can click I agree, and next, and install. Click next, click finish, and that will open Survey Program for Deltarune. You can locate the file you just downloaded by going to Program Files 86 under Local Disk. To download the Keucher Mod, you'll first want to go to the DeltaruneSpeedrun.com page. Click on the Resources tab. Scroll down to Patches. Click on Keucher Mod. Here we have the Chapter 1+2 demo version, the Survey Program English version, and the Survey Program Japanese version, as well as a README giving you more information on the mod. Depending on which version of Survey Program you downloaded, whether it be the English version or the Japanese version, you will want to get the data.win that goes with that. The one I got was the JP one, so I click here, click download. You should now have the Keucher Mod patch on your computer. Now that you have Keucher Mod installed on your computer, you want to patch it into your game. To do this, you can use the software called Floating IPS. Also known as Flips. Just look it up and download the first thing you see. This should work fine. I already have it on my computer, so I'm not going to download it again. And this is what you should see. Simply click Apply Patch. Find it in your downloads. There it is for me. Click on it. Go to where your survey program is located. For most, it will be in local disk, and it should just be here. You'll go to Program Files 86, and then it should just be here under Survey Program. I recommend moving it out of local disk, as it will remove any administrator permission requirements it will already have. So now I have it in downloads right here, Survey Program. You'll want to change this from most common ROM files to all files, and then click on the data.win that you use for main Deltarune. Now you'll want to name this something other than data.win for it to work. So here I'll just name it debug, because that's what it is. And the patch should be applied successfully just like that. Now that Keucher Mod is installed, you can go to where your survey program file is located, open it up, and you'll see data.win files included the main one and debug.smc. You can simply rename this to .win and click yes so it acts as a correct file. One important thing you want to do before using this file as your main file, make sure your normal data.win file that you already have, you name to something other than data.win. This is because you need to use the main data.win for runs for the run to be valid. I can simply rename it to main to say that it's my main data.win and change debug to say data.win. Now, when I open Deltarune, it has a couple of features showing that this is the Keucher Mod version of the game, including an FPS counter in the top left and an in-game timer on the top right. Because of these, I know that Keucher Mod has been successfully applied to my game, as well as the fact that on the top here it says, in parentheses, Keucher Mod. One important thing about Deltarune Chapter 1 speedrunning is that you should have the Control and Shift keys held down at all times, no matter what. This is because the Control button is used as the in-game wrist protector and will automatically mash through text at 15 text boxes per second. The Shift button is used as the Run button, making you move at a significantly faster speed without using the Auto Run function, which is slower to set up. There are a number of ways you can do this. You can hold them both down manually. You can get something to weigh down your keyboard. The way I personally do it, and a pretty popular way, is via the use of sticky keys. A lot of people are intimidated by the idea of sticky keys because they've always been generally confusing, the idea of just pressing Shift 5 times and this pop-up comes up that's super confusing. But they're actually pretty easy to use. You can open them by going down here and typing in sticky keys. And this will pop up. The use sticky keys option you can simply enable, and then this drop down pops up. This isn't important, and neither are these. The most important one is lock the modifier key when pressed twice in a row. You can have it play a sound. You can have it turn off sticky keys on specific stuff. This is the important one. As long as this option is enabled, it should work. So now when I press Control, it's there. And when I press it again, it's locked, so I can press other buttons, and it will always be there. If I press it once and then press other buttons, it will disable it. So make sure you press Control twice to lock it, and then you can also press Shift twice to lock it. And it will always be there, no matter what other buttons you do, no matter what else you do with your keyboard, it will always be enabled. And you can also see the indicator that just disappeared at the bottom. Convenient that it is enabled. One important thing to know about Chapter 1 speedrunning is that we use a New Game Plus only feature to skip the first 4 minutes of the game. In the case that you don't already have completion data in your game because you are downloading another version of the game, or you originally played it casually on a different device than you're speedrunning it on, you can download the files from SRC. Go to the DeltaruneSpeedrun.com page and click on the Resources tab. Scroll down to the saves and download the Chapter 1 saves that Shay uploaded. In the Chapter 1 save files, right at the top, there's a New Game Plus save. Simply throw this into your game files, which you can find by pressing Windows and R on your keyboard and typing into the pop-up %appdata%. From here, click back to App Data, and then click on Local. Scroll down to find Deltarune. This is where all of your save files are located for Deltarune. You can take these files here and move them into here to make your game have New Game Plus, meaning previous completion data. From this, with opening up Deltarune, you should now be able to do bet skip. Once you have all that set up, you're now ready to start learning how to speedrun Deltarune. I run Deltarune in full screen because it works better for me, and I prefer it. It's entirely a preference how you play it, but you can switch between the two by pressing the F4 button on your keyboard. I will give a warning that if you have Windows 11 or a monitor with a refresh rate above 60 Hz, when playing in full screen, the game has a tendency to speed up at points. To avoid this, you can simply play in windowed mode, but if this is not a problem, then it is entirely a preference. It's faster to play in the Japanese version of the game by about 13 seconds for the any percent route. It is quite a bit harder because you have to remember the menus instead of being able to read what they say, so as a beginner, I would definitely recommend starting out with English and moving into JP as you get better at the game. The timer starts when you press Z to start the game on this screen. Precisely the frame when it fades to black after pressing this button. This is the naming section of the game. Your choices don't matter here, so typically you want to mash Z and Enter to get through as fast as possible. Here, you'll want to mash left and Z to select yes as fast as possible. Continue to mash Z and Enter to progress through this as fast as possible. Once you get here, this is when it gets a little weird. You want to choose the fastest name possible, however, you don't want to choose the same name twice. Choosing the same name twice will bring up a kind of message saying that you chose the same name twice and that you're the same person. So to do this, in English, we'll want to select A, and then press End, which I just did Z, and then up left Z, to get through it as fast as possible. And then here, what I'll do is up Z, left Z. So I'm choosing A for one of them, and U for the other one. Two different names, it won't complain about it, which is slower, and you get through the menus as fast as possible. If you do plan on running the game in Japanese, because it is the 13 seconds faster, the naming section will be quite a bit different, thanks to the language difference. You will mash through the beginning part as normal. Coming up here, you will mash left and Z as well. Mashing Z and Enter again here. Your choices do not matter, you want to progress through as fast as possible. This is where it gets a little different. As you can see, the menu is not nearly as simple as it was in English. The fastest options here are to either do that. You have three different choices for names for two different naming screens. You can press up Z, down right down Z to get through it. You can do down down Z, up right Z. Or you can do right up Z, down down Z. You can spread those three out between two different namings. Whichever ones you're most comfortable with, they're all the same speed, and will get you to a name and down to OK as fast as possible. Those are the ones I typically do in runs, because that's what I'm most comfortable with, but it's up to preference. It is quite a bit harder than the English version, but it is worth it, as this section alone is about 2 seconds faster, and there's time saved later in the run. After the naming section, there will be a small section with tutorial, yelling at you to get out of bed. No matter if you have Ctrl or Shift held down, this part will still need to be mashed manually if you have not obtained the wrist protector item yet. Simply just mash Z and Enter at whatever rhythm or pace you can to progress the text. Once you get out of bed, you want to immediately turn back to the right and interact with the bed. Hold left and mash so you go back to sleep. Once you wake up here, you want to mash the arrow keys, all 4 at once, as fast as you can. This will help Chris to wake up faster. Immediately after waking up, hold up and press C. Now you have the wrist protector item. This makes it so you do not have to mash the text away manually, and all text will be mashed on its own at a minimum of 15 text boxes per second. However, you can mash on top of this to mash up to 30 text boxes per second as the game runs at 30 FPS. Progress by holding right through this next room. This room is a little different. There are some bends and curves that you need to get through. The best tip for this room is to just turn in straight directions to go through these turns. Try to avoid bumping into a wall, as bumping will kill your speed and lose about half a second rebuilding up the speed. Don't try to do any funny movement. There is some funny movement you can do where you press the go in a diagonal direction by holding up and right here instead of just right to get through. It's a lot tighter and not worth it 90% of the time unless you're running at a record level. It's best to just press in the full directions and just make sure you get through without bumping into a wall. Like there, I went for the diagonal movement and I ended up bumping, which lost the time back anyway. It wasn't worth it. Coming up into the next room, we have slides. These are terrible. You can go down them normally. You can almost slide into them. If you go down them pixel perfectly, you will keep your speed afterwards. Here I did not, so I lost my speed afterwards, which takes another about half a second to build up. I even messed it up there. If I go down pixel perfectly, you'll see that I didn't actually lose my speed, so I didn't need to take any amount of time to build it back up and didn't lose any time to it. It's very tricky to get all three of these slides throughout this area pixel perfectly, so don't be worried if you mess it up. It will happen, and it's fine. It's a small amount of time loss, but it is something that's good to get good at. Here, it may look like you'll go straight down and straight to the right, as I was saying before. You can do a little bit of diagonal movement here to get closer to the right wall, like this, and immediately turn right as soon as possible. Do not go down here, as this is just a glow shard and it's not part of the route. You can literally just hold right in this room. You will not get hit by any of the projectiles. This room is a little different. What you want to do is you want to solve this eye puzzle by pressing the middle option and the right option. This will open the bridge, to which you can then hold right and walk out of the room. There are a couple ways to do this. You can just do it the slow and consistent way, where you interact with it and then just slide against the wall into the next one. You can try and do it fast, where you interact with both of them without ever losing your speed. It's a little trickier. My setup for this is I go down, as I'm entering the room, I go down to the bottom of the room, without bumping, preferably. I hold up to do that, interact with it, hold back down and then back to the right, and then for this one, hold up and interact with it, and then immediately move to holding right, so I can walk out of the room without losing speed. If done correctly, it should look something like that. This is another room where you could do one of the diagonal movements. Again, I don't recommend it, just go normally. There is a slide here though. Just try and go down in the middle, and you will keep your speed through the slide. If you do end up bumping, being a pixel off to the left, or sliding against it and losing your speed, it's not a big deal, but there is the opportunity to save it if you do it pixel perfectly. Once you go down the slide, you do want to tap down, because if you don't, you'll just run into this. So you want to tap down and hold right. Mash C and enter as you come up to this to interact with Susie. You can mash this text faster by mashing C and enter on top of the wrist protector, and then hold right afterwards. There's more text here, so continue mashing that. The third and final slide is here. Try and go down at pixel perfectly, and then hold to the right. Susie will be here. You can mash away some more text, and this will start the chase sequence. For this one, the main focus should be to hold right as much as possible and try not to get hit. If you do get hit, it's not that big of a deal. You want to progress through the room as fast as possible. Reminder, if it does help, you can run against the wall without killing your speed. Either way, you can stop. You won't have to rebuild up your speed as long as you're moving. So I try and move up and down to avoid these. As long as you avoid them, that's all that matters. Hold right and avoid them. If you are in a position where you're holding right, but you're going to get hit, because you just can't avoid it going up and down, take the damage, it's not a big deal. This part here is entirely an auto-scroller. Nothing speeds it up, getting hit doesn't matter, avoiding it doesn't matter. Try and avoid it because you want to be as much health as possible, but it won't matter what you do. Here Chris will be asleep for a little bit, Chris will wake up on their own, you will walk to the right of the room, and now you'll be in Empty Town. You'll want to walk up here as quickly as possible. This save point is very inconvenient, so I walk generally on the left of the path here, and then as soon as I can, hold up right to enter the castle. Try to avoid bumping into the save point. I will say that text there that appeared on the middle of the screen is normally not auto-mashable, but because I'm in the debug version, it mashed it on its own. That part will scroll automatically and is part of the English and JP time loss. I think that's a few seconds right there, which is why another reason why you would want to play in the Japanese version of the game. However, I still do recommend English for beginners. This part does auto-mash. This is asking you if you want to listen to the legend, which is what plays in the beginning of the game. You always want to hold right and mash no for both of these choices. If you don't, you will lose a couple minutes to watching a super long cutscene. All of this text can be mashed to spell. This starts the Lancer fight. This fight can be completed in 3 turns by hitting all 3 crits or frame-perfect inputs with the fight. If you miss one of them, on the first or second turn, you want to spend the 3rd and 4th turn defending with Chris. If you miss it on the 3rd turn, then you'll just want to spend the 4th turn defending. So, I missed the first crit. This is an example of what a 4 turn would look like. I will fight again. I missed it again, not a big deal. Here is another thing that's important to worry about in this fight. Susie got targeted. You can know this because Susie is highlighted on the left. This is important for a fight later. If you see Susie get targeted in this fight or a fight coming up that I'll mention when I get there, try and take damage. You do not want Susie to be at full health before the checkerboard part of the game. And I'll tell you why once we get there. But you want to make sure Susie gets hit in some way beforehand. That was good there. That was optimal for Susie to get targeted, and I got hit. As long as Susie is not at full health. You do not need to continuously get her even lower, as long as it's not full. There, Chris got targeted. Defend again, and the fight ends. I'll go ahead and show a 3-turn example here as well. After you mash away this text, just hold down to exit the castle. Once you exit the castle, the save point is going to be right there, so what you want to do is you want to hold down right as soon as you exit. So I exit, and then immediately hold down right to get around it, and then walk straight down here. You want to go out the right exit, you can move a little closer to this wall as you're going down to make it a tighter turn, and then just turn to the right, but without bumping. Like that. Here, it's hold right and also mash. The text will come up here, and the right choicer is the one to skip the dummy fight. In this room, there are 2 choicers. This one is easier. You're just holding right and mashing. You won't mess anything up. This choicer is technically a frame or 2 faster. It's barely faster, but you have the risk of walking backwards after selecting it. If you walk backwards after you select it, you will lose time over just choosing the right choicer. So it is highly recommended that you just hold right and mash, and then walk in the door as fast as possible. This ends the Castle Town segment of the run. Next up is the Fields of Hopes and Dreams. Simply hold down and right a little bit so you can get past the save point without bumping into it, and exit the room. Once you're in this room, you want to hold down and then immediately hold right once you get past the turn without bumping into it like I did, and exit the room. This starts the field of hopes and dreams. In this first room, there is an encounter skip. The first Rudin appears in this room. To skip it, you simply want to, as soon as you get into this part, hold down so that you're at the bottom of the room without bumping into it, and then hold back upright to get into the small pathway. This is the easiest of the Rudin skips, as you simply go down to the bottom of the room and then back up, with basically a lot of leniency. The Rudin will not touch you unless you are far up from the bottom, or do not go down basically at all. You have enough leniency to adjust, and if you do bump on the bottom, it's perfectly fine. You can then hold right and hold down to exit that room. In this room, there's another encounter skip that's a little tighter and a little more difficult to actually skip. This is the second Rudin encounter. It's basically like the first one, but you have less room to actually go down. So simply hold down here, move to the right. There's a little bit of Lancer dialogue here. You will just mash through that as you normally do, and this is the skip. You want to hold down to the bottom and then go up to the top. Simple as that. I can slow it down, go down to the bottom of the room, and then just go back up near the end of it. It seems simple enough. However, you don't have much room to adjust your positioning at the bottom, and if you're too high up, it can hit you. It's fairly lenient. Most of the time you will not miss it unless you do not go down nearly far enough. So most of the time you'll be perfectly fine and can just go underneath it. In this next room, you just want to go above this guy and back underneath so you can exit the room. Just a simple upright, down right. In this next room is another encounter skip. The third Rudin. This one can be skipped by immediately entering the room, holding upright and holding down right. So you want to immediately hold upright and then back down right. A very tight turn just to get past it. You want to hold upright immediately, and then after a little bit, go back down right. And you should get past the encounter just fine. This is a puzzle. This is a little weird. It's going to take some practice to get done well. The idea of this puzzle basically is to, if you interact with the clock, you are on a time limit to press this button, these two buttons, and then the next button, the next couple buttons that appear to get through this entryway. What you want to do, there's a couple ways you can do this. Interact with this, come down here, loop up around like that, so Ralsei's standing there, and then walk to the right. Done fast. The way I like to do it involves you going here, walking very far to the right, and then as you go to the right, tap up and then back down. I'll slow this down so you can see it. Walk far to the right and then walk. Okay, I actually messed it up because I'm in slow motion. Walk down, walk far to the right, walk up, and then back down. Ralsei will stand here and up here while also standing on that button. This is what this will look like at normal speed. This is entirely based on preference. Neither is faster nor slower. It's whatever you're more consistent with. The second method is the one I do, as I feel more comfortable with it and get it done correctly more often. Entering this room, there will be another one of these turns that I was talking about before. While you can do weird diagonal movement to get through without bumping, it's fairly precise and not worth it for the small amount of time saved. Simply walk into the room and hold right, and then press down and then right to get through it. Here, you can do a little diagonal movement to get down, as there's no actual risk of it. You want to move down to the bottom of the maze, and then press right to enter the happy fight. This is an unskippable fight, but an important fight. You want to open the act menu on the first one, and then choose X flatter. The menu for this is right C, Z, down Z. You want to graze these bullets however you see fit. Now, it's very important that before the end of the attack, you get hit, because as you saw, Lancer popped into frame there. We want to avoid this. So I will do the same menuing, however, I'm going to get hit at the end of the attack, and Lancer's not going to fail. As you can see, I took damage, Lancer didn't come in, Lancer didn't say anything. This saves a little bit of time to get hit at some point during the attack. Optimally, you want to do it near the end of the attack. Here, you want to spare one of the Hathies, only one of them, and this is important because of the attack difference that it gives you. If you were to spare both of them, it would give you the single Hathie attack, which is quite a bit slower than the double Hathie attack. You can spare one with Chris, and then just simply defend with Ralsei. This will give you the same attack again. You can graze it as you did before, but you do not need to take damage this time, as Lancer will not come into effect. Certain attacks in Deltarune will be sped up by grazing the attack. This is one of them. You can graze it by either just standing in the corner or going in a loop like I did. As long as you get TP from it, it will speed up the attack. After that, you can simply spare, and hit the button. This is a common confusion, but you do not need to menu down to the bottom Hathie to spare it if both of them are spareable. You can spare twice on the top Hathie and it will spare both of them, and this goes for any spareable enemy. After this, you simply hold right to exit the room. There's a puzzle in this room, but we're actually going to want to hold right to exit this room. This is actually a new strat that was discovered in this room. Normally we would just walk into this just like normal. Susie will walk around. Now if you do notice, Susie goes to where Ralsei is positioned and goes behind Ralsei. We can actually speed this up by looping around so that Ralsei is closer to the right. Susie will not walk as far, and this will save a little bit. Right there is a good amount. Susie does not walk nearly as far. This saves about 0.2. It's a pretty minor time save. It's not a big deal if you don't do it. However, it will save a little bit of time to go for it. It's really not punishing or anything. Just move a little bit back and forth to try and get Ralsei as close to the right as possible. You can also go up and down and then walk into it. This one's a little riskier because you could go too much. This is what a specific runner does that I've seen, but whichever one works for you. They're both basically the same speed. That was very bad. That works fine. And then that works fine. And Susie will end up walking a lesser distance to the left, so that will save a little bit. This text will scroll on its own at the same speed with the music regardless of language. There's nothing you can do but wait. After that, just hold left out of the room. This puzzle is terrible. This is not a fun puzzle to deal with, and there is a couple ways you can go at it to make it somewhat consistent, but it will just end up not working sometimes. It's not a fun puzzle. I don't like it. Nobody really likes it. What I do is I will walk into the room, tap up, just like that, so I'm aligned with that block, and then walk over to the right and up like this. Interact with the clock. Ralsei should already be on there. Walk down into the right, and then down like this and back up. Sorry about the music looping. So, that in full speed will look something like that. It's not very consistent, but it's as consistent as we are able to get it. Slow it down. Tap up to get to there. Hold up left. Interact with that. Move on those two buttons. And then just barely it'll work. You can also solve it like that, depending on the movement. There is a chance that you can set it up to work like this. It's a little less consistent, but it will work sometimes. All in all, it's a very weird puzzle. It's hard to do in any way 100% consistently, but it will work generally by just doing this. You will have the highest success rate by just doing this pattern. After you solve the puzzle, simply walk to the right, hold right, mash through that text, and walk into C around here. This fight is extremely difficult, and it actually takes a lot of attacks to end up defeating. What you want to do is you want to fight with Chris and fight with Ralsei, and just mash. Any amount of damage will kill it. It's very difficult. It's actually not very difficult. After this, you walk to the right and out of the room. You'll then want to walk up and right out of the room, ignoring the shop or any of that stuff. Hold right into this trigger, mash through this text. Right there is an example of some Japanese time save. If I wasn't Japanese, that would save quite a bit of time, about a second. Now you're in the Jigsaw fight. For this fight, the first thing we're going to want to do is kill one of the Jigsaw's with Chris and Ralsei's attack, and then Susie will attack for you, killing the second one. You do not need to do a lot of damage there to kill it. You need to do enough to kill the Jigsaw, which has 90 health. Try and graze that attack as best as possible. It's fairly simple, just going just outside of the puzzle pieces. There will be 3 of them. It does save time to graze on that attack. Once the first 2 are dead, you can either fight again to kill this one, you can double defend, so Susie will kill it, or you can act right option, spare with Ralsei, which is slightly faster if you get the menuing fast. Reminder, you do not need to hit both crits or do a lot of damage to kill the first Jigsaw. In fact, if you hit one of the crits, you can actually mash with the other one if the attacks are not stacked, and if they are, you can hit 2 frames off of a crit. They only need to have 90 health damage to them. That's it. As long as you do 90 health. Entering this room is a little weird. You'll want to, as soon as the text ends, immediately hold down right to line up with this box. You will press Z and Z again to move this box up to this position. You'll want to move the right box over here, and then go underneath it and push this up 3 times. You'll then want to move this box to the left and then up, and now you should be set up like this. There is a trick you can do here, which is not very much worth going out of your way for, but if you get it, it does save 0.3, or you can interact with one and then immediately interact with the other one and solve the puzzle and skip that little piece of dialogue there. It's generally not too worth it, but it is an option. And that's what it'll look like if you get it. It's not worth going out of your way for, it's only a 0.3 second time save, but it is a possible thing that can happen. So, generally, it'll look like that if you do it fast. This text can be mashed. Now here we're coming up to the 4th and final Rudin skip in the Fields of Hopes and Dreams. There are a number of different ways to skip this one. Generally what you want to do is you want to get around it by going underneath it, around it, however you need to get past it. Some of the basic methods, the most basic method will be this. If you're confused by that, I will break it down. What you are doing is you are moving back and forth, building up speed, until Rudin gets all the way to the left of their box where they're positioned. And then you want to go underneath it and loop back above it to exit the box. The Rudin cannot leave this little battle box, this box around where the Rudin is, so as long as you get through there as quickly as possible without the Rudin catching you, you're fine. If you do not wait until the Rudin is all the way at the left, chances are it will still work. It's fairly lenient. So, Rudin's not all the way at the left, but it still worked out just fine. That's the normal method for skipping this. A safer method to skip this encounter is actually this. You want to come here, wait for it to catch up to you, go around it, go underneath, and then back up. Some people consider this to be easier. I personally do not believe it is any easier, but that is just me. It's whatever works for you. This is a little slower than the normal method. Generally what you're doing is you're standing here, waiting for it to come over to you, and then you're looping around, going underneath, and then back up. The final, hardest, and fastest method to do this is actually this. This is called Voodin. It is a loop around the inside of the box. This is the hardest, but also the fastest by about, give or take, less than a second, depending on how fast you do it. It can be done at different speeds. You can do it like this, which is a lot wider of a loop and will not be as faster. You can also do it like that, which is a lot smaller of a loop and faster. But it's also riskier, as you can see there. The tighter you do it, the faster, but the riskier. This is not recommended for beginner runners, but it is helpful if you're going for a top level time, as it does save that little bit that helps. All in all, I would recommend beginners do this method. If you do find the safe method easier by a significant amount, it's worth going for. This I really do not recommend until you're at a higher level. But once you get the skip, however you may get it, just hold right and exit the room. Continuing the run into the checkerboard part of the game, you'll notice these white tiles over here. These are very important, as if stepped onto them, it sends you back to the beginning of the room. You want to avoid this as best as possible. Typically try and progress through the room by holding right at all times while moving up and down to try and avoid hitting them. Just like that will do. In this room, we have our first encounter skip of Checkerboard, Pawn Man 1. This skip can be easily performed by just moving through the room with bumping as little as possible. The trick with this room is if you bump more than once, you will not get the skip. If you bump once or not at all, you will always get the skip. I bumped twice there, and I did not get the encounter. It's a little tricky, but with a little bit of practice, it's not too hard to get the movement down. In this room, we have the same white tiles as we had before. Simply progress to the right without bumping and without running into the white. Moving up and down. Here we have more Lancer text. Simply hold right in that. The right cursor is the fastest option here. This room is a lot like previous white tile rooms, except they're in a more diagonal shape and seems almost impossible to dodge optimally. Well, the trick with this room, when you walk into the room, you can actually hold right for 3 flashes, and then after the third one, go to the bottom of the room, and you will get it every time. This next room has the second and final encounter skip in the checkerboard, Pawn Man 2. This is a lot like the first one, where you want to progress through with bumping as little as possible to get the encounter skip. However, this is far more lenient. There, I bumped 2 times and was still not even close to getting the encounter. While it is faster to progress through the room without any bumps, it is very lenient on how many times you can bump without getting the encounter. So if that's all you're worried about, just get through the room as consistent as possible. I bumped 4 times there and was not able to get the encounter. Half of those were intentional bumps. It's very difficult to accidentally get this encounter. It will happen every once in a while. The depending on how bad your bumps are, but chances are you'll be okay. You can just hold right through this room. Entering this next room, just mash the text away. This is the K round fight. This fight can simply be done by choosing Act and Deep Bow all 5 turns. However, this fight has an added gimmick. If you notice there, Susie attacked, which isn't good. It lost a little bit of time to the battle animation of Susie hitting the axe on K round. What you'll want to do to speed up the fight a little bit there's a 1 in 3 chance that Susie will get targeted out of the other characters on the first or second turn. 1 in 3 chance for each turn. This is also where it matters that Susie is not at full health. I do the normal action. I see Susie is targeted. I want to kill Susie as fast as possible. Now Susie is dead. Killing Susie on the first turn saves 6 seconds throughout the fight out of battle animations, and on the second turn saves about 4 seconds throughout the fight. If Susie does not get targeted, that's okay. Do not get hit at all, and you will lose about 6 seconds to the first turn kill. All in all, it is an entirely luck-based time save. It's entirely worth at least going for and knowing about. Grazing these attacks does not speed up the turn whatsoever, so mainly just focus about not taking any damage. And if you do the same action every turn, the fight should end after 5 turns. It's important that you take damage on Susie before this fight, because if you don't, and Susie enters the fight at full health, she will not be able to die from full health in a singular turn. If you do not get a target before this fight, but you get targeted in this fight, Susie will just end up not dying. There is a chance you can get a target on the first and second turn, and then just hit Susie on both of them, which will act as a second turn Susie kill. This next part of the game is the forest. Simply hold right to progress through this room. This next room has an encounter skip, though it may not look like it. We simply walk through here, this rabbit will come out and get you. There is a simple way to avoid this. Before you get up to the rabbit, simply turn around to avoid it. You can also just stop moving and then walk past it. Both will work just fine. Simply walk right into this cutscene. Hold right and walk down after the cutscene ends. You want to pick a left turn on this path. There will be another encounter that comes out of the bush on the left. You can simply do another turnaround to dodge it and then go down. This room has some weird movement you can do to get through it. The normal movement to just try and progress through the room will look something like this. There is a newer and faster strat you can do that's very difficult and requires quite a bit of the diagonal movement I was talking about earlier, but will save a little bit of time and save you from getting hit. Just like that, I was able to progress through the room, beating 2 of the bars and not getting hit. This requires a lot of basically pixel perfect movement to do, but will end up saving a little bit of time over the other strat. Entering this next room, there's a puzzle. The solution is simple, as it quite literally gives you the solution on top of it. Left, middle, left, swap. That's the solution. You can do this quickly. In this next room, there's another encounter skip to worry about. This guy. While it looks like there's a puzzle here that should be solved, this puzzle is not actually important, as all it does is lead to the dice brace up here. To avoid this bloxer, you want to go to the right path, walk down, wait for it to pass, and then go back up, and walk to the right. You can also do this without losing speed, by continuously running down, or moving up and down until it passes, and then walk out of the room. In this room, there's a puzzle down here. This one is not as clear about the solution. The only solution it gives is this little hint about what the colors could be, which is pretty vague, as that would mean we would just do something like this and hope it works. Maybe this. It doesn't work. Talking to these guys will give you the hint on how to solve it, but the solution will be to interact with the middle one, swap it, and interact with the black and the red. Just like that. And then immediately after you solve it, walk to the left, up, and then to the right and up. Now you'll enter the clover fight. This fight is actually very simple. What you want to do is use the manual with Chris, and then defend with Ralsei. The attack it gives you here is RNG. I got the optimal attack, which is the one that comes out of the right side of the screen. This is about 0.5 seconds faster than the other attack where it comes out of the bottom of the screen. For showcasing purposes, I'll get this is the slower attack. This one is harder to graze and will not give you as much of a time save. For the second turn of the fight, what you want to do is you want to use the manual again, but this time spare with Ralsei. This will end the fight in 2 turns. Hold up to exit the room. This is the bake sale. Simply walk up and walk to the right. I will say, a very important thing to take note of, within the clover fight, it's important to see how much health you have. As you can see, Chris is at 58 health and Ralsei is at 70. At this point, as long as one of the characters is above 45 health, you should be fine to progress through Forest as normal. If this is not the case, you'll want to come up here and touch the save point to heal, and then immediately close out of it and walk over to the right. In this room, we have another bloxer encounter skip, though this one's a little bit more difficult. What you want to do is, as you walk in the room, bump against the right wall so that you lose your speed as you walk up. This is important so the left bloxer does not notice you. Technically you do not have to bump, but it is far more consistent than just going up against the wall and then moving up, which will work as well. Once you do this part, you'll want to walk over to this corner and wait for the bloxer to go all the way to the right, and then make the skip. You want the bloxer almost to be going to a stop against the right as you move down. This skip is a little more tricky, but with a little bit of practice, it shouldn't be too hard to get it down. This next room is where your health matters. You'll want to damage boost through these scissor dancers to progress through the room as fast as possible. All in all, I got hit 3 times, which took 45 damage. If I was below 45 damage on both characters, I would have died during that. Make sure for this second part you actually take the top path because you'll get hit less times than if you took the bottom path. That's what it looks like if I take the bottom path. I got hit 4 times, meaning I would have had to be at minimum 60 health to progress through this without dying. This next room has some text you need to match through. This is the Create Your Own Thrash Machine. This menuing is a little tricky. There is some weird choice or delay, that messes with it and makes it just feel generally weird to menu. Do not try to do this fast, just simply ZZ down, ZZ down, ZZ down, ZZ. Repetitive motion, do it at a consistent pace instead of trying to go fast. So you don't necessarily need to do it that slow, but consistency over speed. You will end up saving more time, because otherwise you can get sent back into the option and choose it again, or it can just not work and throw you off. You can select the wrong head. It can be very confusing if you try to go fast. In this room, there's Starwalker trying to shoot bullets at you. Simply move up and down without bumping while holding right to avoid them. You want to go to the top of this room. About here in the middle, there's a tree that you can interact with. This will open the gate on the right. You can do this without bumping by just tapping up, interacting with it, and then just going back to holding right. And then walk down and out of the room to the right. This is the forest maze. There's some text you can match away there. The major important concept of this maze is go where Lancer and Susie are not going. For the first one is to the left. For the next one is to the right. For the bunny one is to the left. And then for this one is to the right. The first four are relatively simple. Then Susie talks to you. You have to match through that text, and now you have to worry about where Susie is going as well. For these scissor dancers, you can't just walk through the middle and skip them just fine. This next room has an encounter skip. This encounter skip is very important as there's quite a few different ways you can actually do this. The normal way to skip this blockster is to hold right, tap against the wall, and then just go up. This blockster is probably the funniest encounter in the game, just for a number of different reasons and strats that you can skip it. That was the normal skip, just hold right against the wall until you bump, and then just hold up, and you will skip it every time. Extremely consistent. Now, it gets a little trickier when we decide to save an entirety of 0.86 seconds on this encounter skip. If you get 2 frame-perfect inputs, you can do this. That's called DBS, or Double Frame Perfect Blockster Skip. This was considered a basically task strat for a very long time, and is honestly not worth it for the small time save. There is, however, an easier version to do this, which goes by the name of Lumity. When you first walk into the room, you actually want to, as you're holding up, tap right. You can do this either 1 frame or 2 frames to the right. 1 pixel or 2 pixels to the right. And then as soon as you get out of this first area, you want to hold right against the wall. You have time to adjust to the wall before the blockster actually catches up to you, and therefore the inputs are no longer frame perfect. If you bump, you will still miss it. That is important to realize. Again, this is only 0.86 seconds faster, so it's really not recommended unless you're playing at a record level. It is a lot easier than the old method, though. Progressing into this next room, just hold over to the left. And then in this one, the right path is just straight up. In this room, it's fairly recommended that you use this heal point, as you will normally be at pretty low health after the damage boosting from earlier. You can technically skip this, and it is a little faster, but it will make the rest of the game very difficult, because you will be playing with basically no health, and can die at any point. Simply hold up, interact with it, close it, and then hold down right to exit the room. Now you're in this room. This is the room with the Susie and Lancer fight. Here there will be a choicer that you can mash. You can either select the choice, or you can just wait. It will select it for you. A little warning about that choicer there. If you do hold right and mash it, you have the chance of then mashing into the fight and fighting, which is not what you want to do. The safest option is just to wait, however, it is a little faster to mash it. Now that we're in the fight, there's a couple different strategies you can do. For the first 2 turns, no matter what strategy you're using, you want to act, Lancer, X anything. Simply try and dodge the attacks. For the second turn, you do the same action. However, now, you want to graze these attacks, as grazing on this turn does save time. Now, this is where the strats get changed up a little bit. The normal strat is now you'll want to act on Susie and sing. And then you go back to the Lancer X anything twice in a row. That will end the fight in 5 turns and is considered 2-1-2 as the strat name, as you're doing 2 actions, a Susie action, and then 2 Lancer actions. The alternative to this strat is called 3-1-1, as you're doing 3 Lancer actions, 1 Susie action, and then 1 Lancer action. Very creative names, I know. You start the fight off with the 2 X anythings as normal, dodging this attack. And grazing this attack. Now here's where the strats get changed up a little bit. Once you do the X anything with Lancer again, you will get a different attack, Susie's Axe attack. This attack, unlike the normal attack you would get in 2-1-2, you can graze to save time on. However, if you don't graze well enough, you'll lose time on. As you can see, I got hit there, which probably lost me a little bit of time, but my grazing was probably still good enough to save a little bit of time. It's a very small time save, less than a second, but it is a time save. After that, you will do the normal Susie sing to put Susie to sleep. And finish it off with It's Anything on Lancer. It will end the fight in the same amount of turns. That strat will just give you a little bit more grazing on that 1 Susie turn, which will end up saving a little bit of time. Here's another example of Japanese text saving time. And you'll normally actually spawn over here, but you can just walk out of the room. Lancer also won't be here. You will spawn over here, and you can just hold right and walk out of the room. Exiting that fight, you enter a very long section, where you quite literally hold the right arrow key and mash the Z and Enter keys. This goes on for quite a while. After that riveting section of holding the right arrow key and mashing, you enter the chase section. For this, it's important that you just hold right while moving up and down to dodge the projectiles. Unlike the first chase section, you can't move against the bottom and keep your run speed. So try to avoid bumping at all. If you do get hit, it's not that big of a deal. It's a pretty hard section to dodge. Your main goal is just to try to get to the right of the room as fast as possible. Entering this room, the projectiles are now shooting up, so you want to start moving up and move back and forth from the left to the right to avoid these. A fair warning, if you're at low enough health, when you walk into this room, just by simply walking into the room, this left part, if this left part is the first one to spawn, simply walking into the room, it will kill you. So make sure you watch out for that if you are at a low enough health. This is because these projectiles actually move slower the less health you're at. So if I walk in and it's on the right, I'm fine. If I walk in and it's on the left, it will kill me. After that, you just mash the text away in this. Now you're in prison. Match away this text. And as soon as you gain movement, what you want to do is you want to interact with the cracked wall above twice, interact with the shackle on the left, and get the iron shackle by choosing the left option, and then immediately talk to Ralsei. This should look something like this. There's another puzzle here. This one gives you the answer directly on top of it again. However, the way you solve it is a little different. Susie's doing it, so you have text choices instead. You want to choose left option, right option, top option, left option. This will solve it. Here you have more choices coming up, so hold right and mash. Continue to hold right and mash as there is another cursor. Your cursors there don't actually matter, but it is just easier to hold right and mash. If you want, and it's more comfortable for you, you can hold left and mash as well, without any time loss. Here, it's just mashing. This fight coming up, it's the Susie versus Lancer fight. This is not only where a lot of the Japanese to English time save comes in, but the fight itself is mainly just time save from grazing. On the first 3 attacks, you're able to graze the projectiles. Just do as best as you can to graze without taking damage. After the first 3 attacks, you will no longer be able to graze the bullets, as all of them will go outside of the battle box if you try to get close to them. The rest of this fight is quite literally waiting for it to end. As I said before, this fight goes by significantly faster if you're in the Japanese version instead. That's the end of the fight. Go back to mashing. Once you walk down out of the prison cell, simply walk down, take a right turn, and then take an upturn to enter the elevator. Mash away the text in here. As soon as the elevator door opens, start holding down. Chris has a small amount of time where they're able to move, and that moving during this time will enable the Susie cutscene talking to you. This starts Castle, debatably the hardest section of the game for a couple of reasons. First up, we have the Rudin Ranger encounter. There's a number of different ways to skip this encounter, and I will be going over all of the majorly used ones. The first and safest method to do this, simply walk to the right and walk out of the room at the bottom. Walk back into the room and hug the left wall until the Rudin Ranger passes on the right, then walk up, over to the left and above. This is the slowest and safest method to do the skip. The second and normal method involves hugging the top wall, walking to this lamp here, walking to the middle of the elevator doors, walking to the left, and hugging the right wall here. This is a small amount faster than the safer method, and is what people normally use. To the lamppost, to the middle of the elevator, cut in front of it, and hug the right wall, and then go up. This is the last and hardest method to skip the Rudin Ranger, also known as Ultra Rudin Ranger. This one is about 4 seconds faster than the normal Rudin Ranger skip. However, it is significantly harder and really not recommended unless you're playing at a very top level. Go against the wall without bumping into it. Do a 2-frame turnaround in between the lamp and the side of the wall. In between this wall and this lamp, do a 2-frame turnaround, and you should be able to walk above the Rudin Ranger. How you do the 2-frame turnaround is entirely up to you. You can hold left and right at the same time, and then take your hand off of left for 2 frames. You can just swap to right to 2 frames. Whatever works for you. It's very difficult and will take a lot of practice to get even semi-consistent. More than often, you will do a 1-frame turnaround, a more than 2-frame turnaround, or you'll just bump at the top, which will make it significantly harder and in some cases impossible. If you do bump against the top at the very beginning, you can simply do the trick earlier and it could still work. It's very difficult though. If you bump after that point, you basically cannot get the skip anymore. The safest way to back this up, if you do realize I messed it up, is to then try and go back into the elevator. If you react fast enough, you can also just go down and take the safe way. All in all, I really do not recommend going for this strat unless you're playing at around a less than 26 minutes and 20 second time. For this next room, simply hold right and take damage. There is a clip you can do here. If you walk into the bar there and then hold down right to try and get through it, it's very rare and will not happen the majority of the time. However, if it does, it will save a little bit because you won't take damage. Generally, don't worry about the clip. Walking into this room, if you just entirely hold right, you will bump against this in the middle. As you enter this room, you want to tap down so that you go underneath the middle part. Smash through this text. Now rules will give you an impossible puzzle. While it seems difficult, we are able to solve this. You want to turn over to the right and press Z on this block while on the right side of it. This will push it over to the left. You can now walk out of the room. Coming up here is the famously difficult Chapter 1 trick, Head Happy Skip. This skip is infamously hard. I already have a Head Happy Skip tutorial video that I will link in the description of this video. To save the time of going over it during this, you can watch that if you want to learn how to do the skip. All in all, you will be moving from the left to the right and then back down and around the Hathy to try and get out of the room as fast as possible. Instead of spending my time to teach you how to do Hathy skip again, I will tell you what to do in case you miss it, which will happen for quite a while and more often than you'd think. Dang, I missed that Hathy skip. What do I do? What you can do for any encounter skip is you can just fight all 3 times. This will end the turn in 3 turns. This will end the fight in 3 turns. However, there is a faster 2-turn method that you can do. If you want to act on the first Hathy with Chris and do Flirt, this is the right option. Fight with Susie on not the first or the second, but on the bottom, which you can just press up to get to instantly. And then you want to spare with Ralsei. Raising this attack does save time. You want to do the same menuing again, except this time you do not need to menu down with Susie at all, because when Chris spares the middle Hathy, the bottom one will be the only one left and will be what you're forced to fight. As you can see during this fight, I missed one of the crits. This fight does require you to get both crits on the Hathy to end the fight in 2 turns. There is, however, an alternative to this. If at some point before the fight you equip the Iron Shackle onto Susie, you only need to hit one of the crits, and you will still kill just fine. It is a little slower, as you'll equip something else later, and you could have equipped them both at once, but it is a safer strat, if that's what you're worried about. In this next room, you want to just walk up here, tank the damage from the Scissor Dancer, and then walk down and exit the room over to the right. There is some weird movement you can do where you avoid taking damage altogether, and it ends up evening out because of the fact that you avoid the damage, but you do have to bump to make it possible. All in all, it's really not worth it, but I'll show it anyway. At the end there, I bumped, which would have made it not worth it. Unless you're really worried about health, and you don't want to heal before King, it's not worth doing that. Just simply go above and do it normally. Entering this room, you can just hold right this time, there's nothing that you can bump into. This puzzle is harder than the last one, but we can still get through it. This time you'll want to stand on the right, press it once, and then press it again. And that will solve the puzzle. This is the last of the difficult rules puzzles, thank God. They're very difficult. Exiting this room, you just walk down, back to the left, and then down to get to the bottom of the room as fast as possible and up the stairs. You can take a safety save here if you want, as there is a fight coming up, and you'll probably be at pretty low health at this point. You won't really end up needing it, as there is a heal point afterwards, and this is slower to go to. So, you want to go up here and enter the shop. You want to buy the second item here, known as the Brave Axe, and then exit. Now that you're out of the shop, as soon as possible you want to open the menu, over to Equip, over to Susie, equip the Axe, and menu down to equip the Iron Shackle. This is the only equipping you need to do in this run, and it's just so that Susie can do a bit more damage and make the King fight easier. Once you do that, exit out of the menu. You can walk either to the right and up, or you can walk to the left and up. Entirely up to preference. As long as you get out of the room at the top as fast as possible. This is the second K-round fight. This one's quite a bit different from the first one. You do not have to kill Susie in this fight, it will not speed up anything. You also don't have to do the normal bow animation. What you want to do is you want to throw Ralsei at K-round's crown 3 times optimally. As you can see, I hit the crown pretty perfectly. If I continue to do that 2 more times, I will end the fight in 3 turns. Grazing here does not save time, killing anybody does not save time. Just simply progress to the fight. This fight does have some janky hitboxes. Stuff like that will work sometimes, and other times it won't. In fact, I was intentionally trying to miss it there to show what happens if you don't hit it, and it ended up working. It's a very funny fight. If you do end up missing and hitting K round, so Ralsei slowly gets knocked off, or going above the ground, that's a turn loss, and you just have to throw again and hope you don't make the mistake again. Progressing to the right and walking up into the throne room. Here, you can make the decision to either take the safety save by walking over to the right, interacting with it, and then going up, or if you're comfortable with your health, you can just go around the throne and walk out of the room, entirely ignoring the save point. Coming up is the king fight. There are a few different variations of how we do this fight, those of which being 5 red, 6 red, which there are 2 variations of, and defend all king. 5 red being the normal, 6 red being the hardest and fastest, and defend all being the easiest but by far slowest. I'll start with the 5 red. 5 red starts with you acting with Chris, talking to Susie, and defending with Ralsei. Get used to this menu as you've already been doing it a lot and will be doing it even more in this fight. For the second turn, you want to just fight with everyone. Try your best to hit crits, however, it's not entirely important that you do. The more you hit, the better. Now we're using our first Red Buster. The important thing to note about a Red Buster is it does damage when you use it, however, if you mash on top of the animation while it's happening, you will do more damage. So here you'll want to Red Buster defend, and then as this is happening, mash the and enter on top of it. I would do about 30 less damage there if I didn't mash on top of it. This goes for every time you use the Red Buster. On this turn, you'll want to fight all again, try and crit, but it's not entirely important that you do. This being said, you do have to hit some crits during the fight, you just don't have to hit all of them. It's not incredibly important. Here you'll want to do the Red Buster defend again while remembering to mash the Red Buster. Around this point in the fight, you would want to consider a Red Buster and a Ralsei fight instead of a Ralsei defend. For the 5 red strat, you want to do at least one Red Buster fight. I do it around the time when I have a small amount more than 60 TP. That way I can have a safer, grazing-wise fight. It keeps you from accidentally getting 59 TP and having to deal with going over. Really, it does not matter where during the fight you do it, as long as you do it at one point. Of course, I say that, and then I graze to 58, which will actually put me in a pretty bad position, and now I will get up to max TP. That's what you want to avoid. If this does happen, it's okay. Chances are you're grazing more TP than you need anyway to be in this situation. However, it is better to avoid it. This should be the 4th Red Buster. That's the 9th turn there, you want to fight all. Chances are you won't have enough TP to do a Red Buster there. Even though I do in this example. That's the 10th turn, you want to end the fight by Red Bustering and fighting with it. And that's the end of the fight. The turn order should have been on screen at some point during that fight. All in all, you do 5 Red Busters and 2 Ralsei solos. if you are good enough at crits, which is getting all of them except 1 or 2 of them, depending on who you miss the crits with, the last Ralsei solo will not end up going through, and you will save a little bit of time, because King will just die before you're able to do the last Ralsei hit. Now I will show the safer, yet slowest method. This one is about 20 seconds slower than the normal 5 red strat, and it is called Defend All King. It seems confusing, right? No. All you have to do is just defend with everyone every turn. The fight will end on its own. Nothing really matters. All that's important is staying alive. Grazing on some attacks will save time and generally speed up the attack. But all in all, if you're doing this, you're not worried about grazing, you're worried about staying alive. And that's what you need to do, and that's what you'll do. This is a very, very safe strat, and I even recommend beginners go out of their way to try and learn 5 red, as it really is just better. There is the risk, however, for any other king strat than this, that if you do kill anyone at any point, you messed up the strat and are not able to get it anymore. And we don't get healing in the normal route, so you'll have to deal with Ralsei's heal prayer as the only way to bring up the fight. This fight will last, give or take, about 16 turns, I'm pretty sure. But it's only 20 seconds slower because of the lack of attacking. As you can see, we're already on the 10th turn, but we still have so many more turns to go because we're just defending every turn. I am grazing these attacks as I go. However, it's really not important. If you're doing this method, this is a very beginner strat, and you're not worried about grazing, you're not worried about the time save, you're just worried about staying alive. So, don't focus on grazing as much as staying alive. This is the strat that you think you should do. But like I said, I do recommend practicing and learning 5 red, at least.
Ashmichda.
And the fight will end itself at a certain point. The last and final variation of the king fight is called 6 red. This is by far the hardest variation of the fight and is only slightly faster. I do not recommend this unless you're going for a very, very top level time. This being 26 minutes and 20 seconds or lower, or even lower than that. This is a couple seconds faster than 5 red if you play it perfectly. There's 2 variations to do this variation of king fight. This can either be the normal method, which is easier on grazing but harder on crits, or the different variation, King Andrias, which is what it's called, where it's easier on crits but harder on grazing. I'll start off with the first method. You want to start the fight as normal, talking to Susie and defending with Ralsei. Grazing in this fight is more important than in any other version of this fight, so worry about grazing. Here, you'll want to do a fight, and a defend. Crits are also extremely important. If you hit every single crit in this fight, which is 8 crits with a fight, defend, you will skip out on a solo at the end, meaning you will not do any Ralsei solos throughout the entire duration of the fight. If you miss a crit, you'll have to do a Ralsei solo at the end, and lose a little bit of time. hit all 8 crits during the fight, so I will be skipping on the Ralsei solo. This is technically the fastest and most optimal way to complete the fight in general. The fight then ends there without letting you do the Ralsei solo. If I were to miss even a singular crit, that Ralsei solo would have gone through, and I would have hit it based on how many crits I actually hit throughout the fight. This fight is a little harder crit-wise because of the fact that you have to hit every single crit. However, you get more TP from the fight, defend. The other strategy you can do removes the fight, defend. This makes it so you have to graze 10 more TP, but you do not have to worry about crits nearly as much. This is my preference, as it's very scary to have to hit a certain amount of crits in a row. But it's whatever your preference is. As you can see, I've already missed 2 crits, but I can still get the perfect variation of this fight if I just graze well enough. I missed a lot of crits there and was still able to end the fight exactly optimally as I did before. A fair warning, all of these king methods, the 6 reds and the 5 red, will all need a basic level of crits required for the fight to end after the certain amount of turns. However, to get more optimal versions of the fights is changed in 6 red, based on which 6 red method you do. You still do need to hit some crits. If you miss every crit throughout either variation of the fight, you will not end up killing in 10 turns, which is the fastest you can kill the king in while still being optimal. You can technically kill the king in a turn shorter, but it will end up being slower thanks to battle animations. There is one more thing you can do for the Andrias method, the fight method. If you do get to the point where you are not able to do the red fight on the 10th turn, there is a backup that's a little slower, but is possible. Coming up on the 10th turn, there's a chance you do not graze enough to be able to do the red buster. Wow, I only grazed 54 TP. What do I do now? You are within the 10 great TP leniency that you would get from the other version of the fight. However, you did not graze quite enough. What you can do is a fight rude fight, make it a 5.5 round. This will still kill, around generally the same speed as the other 6 red method if you were to not get all the crits. The other method is still safer if you are better at crits than grazing, or you are not capable of grazing to 60 every time you do this fight, just because you can graze as much as I did here, but hit all the crits, and you will still be able to get the optimal fight. So really, it's entirely up to preference and what you're better at. Just no matter which method you do, there is a safety for at least a little bit. It is still a very difficult strat, and if you're not comfortable with it and are not okay with it enough for the 2-second, 3-second time save, it's not worth it. Stick to 5 red. But it's whatever you're comfortable with. After you finish the fight, simply mash through the text. This is basically the home stretch of the game. All you have left is home down. You've done all the tricky stuff. Once you exit this room, you want to walk to the right and then just up so you can enter the fountain as soon as possible. Continue to match the text over. Once you exit the dark world, there will be some text boxes coming up. Mash those away as well. A fair warning about this room. When Susie starts to walk out of the room, stop mashing and hold down left. If you mash too much, you can interact with the floor. So there, stop mashing and hold down left to walk out of the room. If I were to continue mashing, I would have ended up interacting with the floor, which would lose a little bit. And also just be inconvenient. Here, there's some unskippable text that is a little bit of Japanese time save. Right there. If I was playing in Japanese, that would go by a little faster. Hold down. Continue to mash as for the tutorial text box down with you. You walk down left to exit the school and walk over to the left. You want to go straight up. In this room, you want to walk over up left and go up here. And then hold up until you walk into the house. Quickly turn after you walk into the house to left, mash away the tutorial text. You want to walk up the stairs. So you're holding left, hold up to run up to the stairs. There is a chance you can bump on the side of the stairs as you're going up it. Try to avoid doing that by making a full-on clean up turn. As soon as you walk up, there's a chance you can continue to hold up and then just walk back down the stairs. As soon as you make the turn, as soon as you go up the stairs, turn to go to the left. Walk over to the door, hold up. Walk into the door. Then you'll want to walk upright, over to the bed, interact with it, and hold to the left to choose yes. There will be a time where you mess up the bed by interacting with it after you turn around already, or you choose no, something will happen. Just try and walk up to the bed, interact with it, and choose yes. Timing ends as soon as that text box closes. And that's it, you've completed your first speedrun of Deltarune Chapter 180%.